Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for Wednesday, September 13th, 2017, in the 8th year of Chungi, the seventh month, and the 23rd day of the 7th month. Here with Tim Elder, here with Greg Knoll, in place we're sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. And I want to start with the weather today. Let's see, where do I have the weather? It's in the Cheongguk area, it's 52 degrees right now, and foggy, as it often is in the Delaware Valley, because the fog comes off the river, I guess. And we're going to have 77-degree high today with periods of sun and with a shower time. Looking at the weather forecast, it seems that we're starting to get some of the rotation from Irma. Is coming up here, and so the next few days we'll be getting some of that warmer air up here, so it's in the upper 70s, and also some of that humidity and rain is coming up, and so. But already Irma is down to another low pressure area on the map. It's just an L on the map. That's all it is right now. So, but I know that people in Florida and Georgia, I think South Carolina as well, are suffering from it, and I hope that they can recover quickly. In particular, I was reading that we'll get into it later, but in Florida, I guess some places may not have power for weeks even.
Yeah.
So that's
I was
really
speaking to a friend yesterday, and he said 500,000 in his area are without power. And he's been without power since the storm. You know, without power in Florida is serious because there's no air conditioning.
Yes, and 90-degree heat is coming. I think even today, I think it's going to get up to 90 degrees today.
Yeah, he says it's for older people, it's really quite a concern.
Right. Yeah. So those are some of the things that that we need to learn as we prepare for our coming disasters, potential coming disasters. We don't know what's going to happen because we are going through a judgment period, and various things may happen, and so we need to learn from these things.
Particularly how to deal with cold, because here we don't have the extreme heat like in the southern states, but it's pretty bad if you don't have the ability to heat your home.
Yes. If something were to happen, we were to lose power for weeks during the winter months. Yes, that would be a very difficult situation for many people.
And most people aren't equipped.
That's right.
I would say with wood burning stoves or propane will last for a certain while. So if you have a bigger tank, it might be good. Like we decided to upgrade our tank, go from a small tank to a pretty good sized tank, and that will give us an additional probably 3 to 4 weeks of propane use if necessary, even for heating.
Well, we have a fireplace, but then where's the wood going to come from?
Right. You better have a decent stockpile of wood.
Even a decent stockpile of wood, yes. You have to have all that.
For about $175, you can get a cord, which will last about a month or two of steady use. But it's an expense, or you get out there and chop the wood. Training.
Well, even then, I mean, whose tree are you going to cut down?
A lot of trees in Pennsylvania.
But if you're on my particular plot of land, it does not have any trees on it. So.
Oh, really?
Yes, so we continue to pray for the people who are affected by Irma and also by Harvey. I think people who are affected by Harvey are still recovering in Texas there. And fortunately, Irma didn't go that way. There was a possibility in the beginning, as it was coming up through the Caribbean, that it might go past Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico, but I think that would have been a real disaster. And I was reading also that because of Irma took the path that it did, a little bit more, exactly the path that it did, a little bit west to what was originally projected, that the damage from Irma was actually much less than might have been expected. It was only about a quarter of what could have been. That what might have been. Original projections were up to $200 billion, but $50 billion is still a lot of money. But $50 billion is a lot less than $200 billion.
4 times less, yes.
Yes. So we are grateful for that it didn't happen, that the worst case scenario did not happen, but we continue to pray for the people who are working to recover.
I think what happens is it goes up the coast and it still gains a lot of moisture going up the Atlantic coast, but since it went inland, it quickly diffused.
Yes, that was good, let's come back in a minute then and start going through our, or shall we do our Rima now? Let's do our Rimas now, and before we go to break. I'm in Acts chapter 6, verse 14. And this is the scene where Stephen he was a great witnesser apparently. And in verse 7 it says, "And the word of God increased, and the number of disciples multiplied in Jerusalem greatly, and a great company of the priests were obedient to the faith." But then that caused, people who had positions and stuff like that didn't like that. And so they started to criticize him and to speak out against him. And here, the Rima that I was given today is verse 14. And this is people now criticizing Stephen. "For we have heard him say," as Stephen say, "that this Jesus of Nazareth shall destroy this place and shall change the customs which Moses delivered us." So that was the Rima that I was given today, Acts 6. And in the Cheonseongyeong, well, let's talk about Acts 6 first, because I'm going to get distracted when I go to the Cheonseongyeong, because that's another one of those, yes. Another one of those. But what struck me about this is that, the Jewish establishment, the priests and the of the Jewish establishment were hung up on their organization, on their established structure and their positions. And they were afraid that Jesus and Stephen and the other Christians were going to destroy that. And it reminded me that back when I was living in Japan, Father was sending all these Koreans to Japan to become leaders in Japan, and a lot of the regional leaders in Japan were Koreans, and Koreans were basically in charge of the Japanese church. And one Japanese member spoke to me and says, some of us are afraid that Japanese culture eventually is just going to be destroyed and will disappear. And I remember telling him that, whatever is from God is permanent. You can't destroy it even if you try. So, and of course, there are parts of Japanese culture that are from God and the other parts that are from Satan. Some parts of Japanese culture Father really respected. Other parts he didn't. But whatever is from God cannot be destroyed. And I think this is what people who get into sort of established organizations forget. And they forget that, even in the Family Federation, for example, they're afraid that Father and the Second King are going to destroy their organization. But if it is from God, it won't be destroyed. But if it is man-made, and if it's from human beings, or if it is from Satan, it will be destroyed. It will not last, because I think anything that is man-made has a certain lifespan, and it will be destroyed or will disappear. But anything that comes from God does not have a lifespan. It's eternal, and so we don't have to fear any destruction. The economist Hayek talked about the creative destruction. I think in Cheonilguk there will be a lot of creative destruction, because for new things to come out, old things have to be destroyed. And that was the idea behind this concept of creative destruction, that old things, things that are, from an economic perspective, things that are inefficient in the market need to pass away. Companies that are inefficient need to go bankrupt for the economy as a whole to prosper. And I think that is the situation that we have today with the Family Federation especially, that for God's will to prosper, these organizations that have become of man or of Satan need to pass away. Either pass away on their own or be destroyed by outside forces or whatever. But so that is my feeling from this Rima of this person criticizing Stephen for his work in Jerusalem.
Yeah, I think what I heard from the Rima too is just how treacherous and dangerous it is to have power and position. And Father talked about this a lot. Whether you're a PhD or you have some kind of position within society, it's the biggest hindrance to really receiving God's guidance and doing God's will. Actually, is being filled with your own self-glory. And I think certainly Jesus ran against this and ultimately led to his crucifixion. Father, powerful Christians did not want to lose their membership or their, perceived power and position in society. And so a lot of fear is generated from that. And,
Now let's go to the Cheonsonggyong. And it seems to me that Father, when I open the Cheonsonggyong, because when I pick a Cheonsonggyong Rima, I pick it from the Korean Cheonsonggyong, and especially on Wednesdays, I read the Korean Cheonsonggyong. We talk about it in Korean first, and then I have the same Rima for the English broadcast now. But I think that what Father's doing with me is that he is leading me to places in the English Cheonsonggyong where he is not happy with the translation. I'm still getting static about I'm changing the Cheonsonggyong by correcting the English translation of the original, and people still don't seem to realize that the English is not the original. That you're changing Father's words. Father didn't speak in English, all right? Most of the time. Sometimes he did, but 99% of the time he spoke in Korean. And the English that we have is someone's idea of how Father's words should be expressed in English. That's all it is, all right? And it's man-made. It doesn't come from, so I say it doesn't come from God. But anyway, there's plenty of human thing in here. Anyway, I'm on page 355 today. And Father has given me a very clear example of where there is a problem with the English translation. And I know one of the Family Federation's argument for their blasphemous Cheonsonggyong is that it has a better translation. But of course, that's not an excuse. All right, just because, Satan can appear as a beautiful woman, right? So if a woman is more beautiful, does that make her more godly? No. Satan can always appear as a beautiful woman. That's no problem. Satan can also appear as a perfect translation, all right? But Father wants his word to be communicated as accurately as possible in other languages. Of course, that's why he told everybody to learn Korean. But for those who have not yet, he wants his words to be communicated clearly. Okay, this is in the book on True Love, Chapter 2, and page 355 here in the English Cheonsonggyong. And this is what it says. A man is an incarnation of true father, and a woman is an incarnation of true mother. Therefore, when the husband looks down on his wife, he looks down on true mother, and when the wife deceives her husband, she deceives true father. All right, it's not completely wrong, but using the word incarnation here, incarnation, the definition of incarnation here is a person who embodies in the flesh a deity, spirit, or abstract quality. That's one definition. And then another definition is with reference to reincarnation, one of a series of lifetimes that a person spends on earth. And as an example of the first definition. We have Rama was Vishnu's incarnation on earth. And other synonyms are embodiment, personification. So, can we say that I am an incarnation of True Father, or that my wife is an incarnation of True Mother? Is that what Father really said? Father actually said, when the word that's translated here is incarnation is punshin, and if we look at the Korean dictionary and look at the definition of punshin, it says something that comes out of a certain 주체, there's a certain subject partner. So it comes out of that subject partner. So it separates from that subject partner. And in fact, the Chinese characters here, pun means to divide or to separate, and the shin is body. So it's like separated body. And the second definition is actually the similar to the English second definition. That is it says that the Buddha, in order to just a minute here. The Buddha was reincarnated, so that is the Buddhist definition of this word. So it looks like the English translator here maybe looked at the Buddhist definition and used the punshin, translated punshin in that kind of a Buddhist way. But I think it's quite a different concept to say that a man is a punshin of Father. In other words, is coming out of Father, separated from and coming out of Father. So embodiment would have been, I think, a much better word to use there. And personification, I think probably embodiment would have been a much better word. Incarnation has too much baggage there, and I think it really miscommunicates what Father wanted to say. The second problem with this quote here, where he says that when the husband looks down on, and here the word that Father uses is the word that the Second King has been using a lot, and that is mushi. That is when the husband mushis his wife, then he is mushiing Father. And here it is translated as looking down on, which I guess is a kind of a partial translation. I might get a bit of maybe a half grade or maybe a third of a grade. But mushi, I think what I think comes closest to mushi in English is when is the term disrespect. I think comes closest to it, especially in gangster movies or something like that, or in movies where you have people in the ghetto talking. They say, "Oh, are you disrespecting me?" Basically. That's very, very close to the Korean idea of mushi, disrespecting. So it's looking down on, it's ignoring, it's sort of not taking someone seriously. This kind of thing. All of those are included in mushi. Mushi means all of those things. So I think. A better way to translate this would have been to say when the husband disrespects his wife, looks down on. Would that be all right to say that he disrespects his wife? Would that kind of he is disrespecting True Mother, and when the wife deceives her husband, she deceives our True Father. Mm-hmm. So those would be the corrections that I would want to make in this particular passage. I'm sorry that I always get hung up on the translation, but that's
kind of who you are.
That's kind of who I am. That is kind of who I am, yes. But let's talk. So let's look at this rima corrected in that way. So let me reread it in my version, in the Tim Elder version. All right, this is the TEV. This is the TEV Chun Sung-kyung. A man is an embodiment of true father, and a woman is an embodiment of true mother. Therefore, when the husband disrespects his wife, he disrespects a true mother. And when the wife deceives her husband, she deceives true father.
That's very clear.
That's very clear?
Yeah, much more clear. Actually.
Much more clear.
Mhm.
All right. Don't you like that better than incarnation?
Yeah, incarnation is very mystical.
Mystical, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Punshin, yeah, it's kind of it's something that is separated and divided out of. It's something like sort of a, I don't know, like a...
Could be like a child or is separated
Yeah,
from
yeah,
the parent.
yeah. I would say that a child is a punshin of the parent. But, you know, what reminds me of is in those alien movies, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, when and it comes out of the body, you know.
Right.
But I think, yeah, like a child is let me see if that works let's see if I can Google that phrase right now in Korean and see if that is a common phrase in Korean. Let me, yeah, it doesn't come up quickly. But I think that would be a fair statement, yeah.
So we're very fortunate to have the king and queen who really set an example of what you're talking about in
Yeah.
the Rima.
Yeah,
You know, where Youngjanim is, the king is clearly the subject, but he really loves and respects his wife.
Yes.
And does not disrespect her in any
yes.
way.
And
Uplifts her.
he's always uplifting her, and he's always
uplifting, yeah. Encouraging.
encouraging her and in the things that she does,
Mhm.
and also, you know, talking about how beautiful she is,
Mhm.
and also making her more beautiful,
Right.
training her, and making her, increasing her beauty.
Yeah.
You know, in my experience as well, not as much as the king, but I've found that over what is now coming up on 35 years now, it's really been a period of studying my wife and finding new aspects of my wife and helping her to develop those aspects that she herself didn't know existed, and to sort of give her the confidence to develop those aspects. I mean, before she met me, she was a reader. She was quite a reader. She read lots of books, various kinds of books. But then, it turns out that she's in Korean. She's quite a good writer, and she has a tremendous curiosity. And for a while, she was a stringer for our Korean paper, the Segeilbo. She would write from Washington, and some of her articles got quite a few views. I remember one time she wrote about she was working in a high school there in Fairfax County, and one day she saw one of the girl students come to school pregnant, and so she wrote about that. That got quite a lot of views in Korea. You can imagine. About a high school girl coming to school pregnant.
That's kind of unheard of in Korea.
Kind of unheard of, yeah.
It used to be that way in the United States not too long ago.
Yeah. And that kind of thing. And she wrote other articles that got a lot of views and were picked up by other publications, actually. That particular one was picked up by other publications, and that's one of the reasons it got so many views. That was one aspect. And recently she's been watching a lot of videos on YouTube about various things, and in last Sunday's or last Wednesday's sermon, the king quoted her about some of the things that she informed him about Islam.
About what?
Islam.
Islam. Okay.
Yeah, because she's been watching these lectures on YouTube about a Korean who was a missionary in Iran for about 20 years, and now he's gone back to Korea to warn Koreans about Islam, because Islam is also growing in Korea.
Is that right?
Now, it's not very large yet. It's still compared to Christianity, it's still very, very small, but it's definitely growing, And some Korean women are, they fall in love with a guy from the Middle East, and after they marry, she finds out he's got another wife back home, and this is all okay in Islam, and there's things like that, and sometimes Korean women are getting themselves into situations that they don't realize. Islam, Christianity, one is all going up the same, different paths up the same mountain. It's kind of cultural relativism.
Yeah.
And they find out that Muslims are not quite as relativistic as Christians are. So anyway, it's been a process for me to study my wife, to get a PhD in eunosogology, and to develop those aspects. And I think that's really important in a relationship, and that's actually quite rewarding and fulfilling for me. Because I know that by meeting me, she is a farm girl, or she wasn't really. Well, she grew up on a farm, but also she grew up in the city, and she's a city girl. But anyway, she would not have traveled to the U.S. and Japan and spent so much time overseas and learned Japanese and English and met so many people, and and so she's. I can see that by marrying me, she has been able to grow a lot in many ways that she might not have otherwise. So that's very rewarding for me.
And she's been very good on the King's Report.
Yes.
I don't know what she's saying, but she has a very good presence.
Today she went a little bit too far and used a word on the Korean broadcast that we're not supposed to use in broadcasts.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. We might have to edit it out later on. I don't know. So anyways, sometimes she goes a little bit oversteps, but anyways, that's okay. I mean, everybody, I'm sure God enjoys it. We were talking about Kim Jong-un.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
so
and
that invoked some emotion.
She used a word that normally is not used in polite conversation in reference to Kim Jong-un, which is probably, I don't know,
fine, right?
Maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, that's it. We've already have the music going. All right, it's already, oh my goodness, look how long it's been already. So, all right, it's already past 7 o'clock. So let's take a break here and we'll come back and start going through the news from a Cheongguk perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, September 13th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, the 7th month and the 23rd day. And I wanted to go to the some of the stories about the recent hurricanes. You know, as we learned from Dr. Spencer, was it? Oh, who came on the King's Report yesterday, was it? Yesterday, wasn't it? 2 days ago?
Was it yesterday?
Yesterday, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was yesterday. That was an excellent sermon, excellent interview. The headline I'm looking at has the word sermon in it. So I'm not Nancy Pelosi, all right? That was an excellent interview, and it's on YouTube as a separate video. So I would encourage people to watch it if you have not already. And he made some very good points. And he said, yes, the sea level is rising. But it's been rising since the middle of the 19th century, since the 1850s, I think he said, and it's been rising at the same rate. And so it's not, we have no evidence that it's rising any more quickly than it was before. And he also said that, yes, we've had some hurricanes this year, but, you know, hurricanes happen and they come in clusters. And we know that they come in clusters. And so it's not unusual that we would have first Harvey and then Irma like this, and then Jose now out in the Caribbean, sort of going in circles apparently, trying to decide where to go. And also Katia hit Mexico a little bit. But anyway, Jose I think is a Category 1 hurricane. But of course the left is not satisfied with that. These hurricanes are proof that there is man-made global warming, and that the Earth is going to hell in a handbasket, and Trump is destroying the Earth, and so they had their benefit concert, which turned into a left-wing sermon. It was probably planned that way, and here's an article about that. Mere seconds into the celebrity-filled benefit concert for victims of Hurricane Harvey and Irma, did these stars turn the ostensible charitable event into a platform for left-wing sermonizing. Stevie Wonder, who kicked off the show, began with call for unity, but then turned to mock anyone who questioned the global warming theory. Isn't that right? So
unity based on what I believe.
Yes, unity based on me. Or unity based on the all-powerful central government.
Right. Global government now, because the UN is behind the global warming.
Yes. Quote, when love goes into action, it preferences no color or skin, no ethnicity, no religious beliefs, no sexual preferences, and no political persuasion. Mr. Wonder began, it just loves, as we should begin to love and value our planet. But apparently love doesn't extend to people who have other views about global warming. But after calling for love, he singled out skeptics of man-made climate change for derision. Quote, anyone who believes that there is no such thing as global warming must be blind or unintelligent, unquote, Mr. Wonder said. Lord, please save us all. Beyonce followed soon after, again using the National Telethon to promote climate change activism, warning that we must prepare for what comes next. The effects of climate change
Preparation.
Preparation.
She's a prepper.
She's a prepper. There you go. The effects of climate change are playing out around the world every day, she stated. Just this past week, we have seen devastation from monsoon in India and an 8.1 earthquake in Mexico and multiple catastrophic hurricanes. So this is what Dr. Spencer was saying. These are natural events.
Mm-hmm. Every year.
Well, maybe not necessarily every year.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily even every decade. Mm-hmm. But over the long term, they happen. They've happened in the past and they happen now. I went through a hurricane in Corpus Christi, and I was just looking up that. It was looking that up yesterday. It was Hurricane Beulah in 1967 in Corpus Christi, and I was just looking up some of the the Wikipedia stuff on that. I was in Corpus Christi, and apparently it hit Texas coast around Brownsville area, so south of Corpus Christi. And at one point, their measurements were not as accurate as they are now, but apparently it was either a 4 or a 5 hurricane at one point. And I remember, we boarded up the house. I was in my aunt's house at that time, and we boarded things up, and we just sort of hunkered down and waited for it to pass. But we didn't have celebrities giving us benefit concerts or, 6,000 people in Corpus Christi apparently at that time went into shelters. I don't remember. We did not go into a shelter. We just sort of hunkered in place. But because today we have this, these CNN 24-hour news and all these stations and channels, and we have this social media and everything that everything seems to be a lot bigger. It's a lot bigger deal than it used to be.
A lot more
Don't you
coverage,
think?
emotion.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So this is just one of my boyhood memories. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
But now, Harvey, Irma, it's like the end of the world.
Well, there's an agenda to be
Yes.
made now,
Yes.
whereas before there wasn't. It wasn't this collective
right,
kind of
right.
agenda to get something passed.
Right. Yeah. No one tried to lecture us about global warming back in 1967 after Hurricane Beulah.
Well, Al Gore is mostly responsible. He's the kingpin of global warming, and he's the one that's going to be profiting the most from this.
Mm-hmm.
So he's he's done a good job selling this message.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he has. And I haven't looked yet at the Inconvenient Deception book that Dr. Spencer put out, but I think, from what I've heard of it, it's a very good book. It's a point-by-point rebuttal, he said, of Al Gore's Inconvenient sequel.
And he worked for
books.
NASA. He's quite a high-level scientist. He's not just some Joe on the street, some blue-collar Joe that's got his theory, but he's actually very rooted in science and has a lot of credentials behind what he says.
And NBC's Matt Lauer also came out after Beyonce, and he said Hurricane Irma was the most powerful Atlantic storm ever recorded. And I don't know if that's actually true. That's what some of the media have been saying, but I think that needs to be fact-checked.
For the last 50 years, I think. I heard
Cutting a
another
path of
report.
destruction across the Caribbean, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and then setting its sights on the U.S. mainland. According to Colorado State University meteorologist Philip Klotzbach, Hurricane Irma is actually tied for the 7th strongest hurricane ever recorded. So already we have a fact check right there. So all continental U.S. hurricanes with less than 940 millibar pressure at U.S. landfall, and the strongest one was in 1935, where and at landfall, Irma was not even Category 5, it was Category 4, whereas we had Katrina was a Category 3 at landfall. But we had 3 hurricanes in the past that were Category 5. Andrew in 92 was Category 5, and Camille in 69 was Category 5, and the 1935 Labor Day hurricane was Category 5. But Irma is down there in number 7. Justin Bieber, who is reportedly pursuing a more religious lifestyle, introduced My Man, an unnamed spiritual advisor, as well as a rabbi, Ari Lucas, and the director of the Islamic Center of Southern California, Jihad Turk, to pray. That's a good name, Jihad Turk. The prayer, making reference to the great division in our nation, eschewed an amen at its conclusion in favor of a non-denominational hallelujah. God, we, the faith community, come asking for wisdom, discernment, and compassion as we walk alongside those who have lost so much, loved ones, homes, businesses, and hope cause us to be the hands and feet of compassion to all who are in need, no matter their background. At a time of great division in our nation, may we lay down our differences, pick up our common humanity for the sole purpose of serving our fellow man until hearts are healed and lives restored. And though we don't yet understand the purpose of the storms, we know you will guide us through these storms, so we close this prayer not with an amen, but with a proud praise rooted in an eternal hope. Hallelujah. Well, that's a prayer that many of us could have prayed. Mm-hmm. But again, are they going to include us in that? They're going to include those of us who are skeptical of man-made climate change in this outreach? Are they going to have compassion for us? Other celebrities who participated in the event included Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, George Strait, George Clooney, Jamie Foxx, Carly Kloss, Matt Lauer, Rob Lowe, Matthew McConaughey, Cher, Nora O'Donnell, Dennis Quaid, Julia Roberts, Kelly Rowland, Adam Sandler, Ryan Seacrest, Michael Strahan, Blake Shelton, and Reese Witherspoon. Donations go to Comic Relief USA's Hand in Hand Hurricane Relief Fund. Okay.
Comic Relief?
Yes. Comic Relief USA's Hand in Hand Hurricane Relief Fund. I would not donate to that.
I donate to. Wasn't there an article recently that 95% of donations toward hurricane victims have come from faith-based institutions and individuals? That the vast majority of help that comes from hardworking Americans that give through their churches. That's a better way to go.
Yes. But celebrities are interesting people. You know, someone writes a script for them, and someone directs them and tells them what to do. And they think that by that, because someone writes some good lines for them, that they can speak on their own, and people will treat them as experts in various
that they
fields.
have some kind of moral authority.
Just because you play the president on television doesn't mean that you're qualified to be president, right? Just because you save the planet on the movie screen doesn't mean that you get to save the planet in real life. But they don't get that.
They're basically good at lying.
Yes.
They lie about who they are by acting.
So that is the Drudge headline this morning. Great again, median income rises to highest on record. Wow. What's happening? Who's president? The Democrats, who are supposed to be the working man, the poor guy's party, can't stand this guy who keeps raising the stock market, raising the median income, and lowering the...
They should be celebrating, shouldn't they?
They should be
When
celebrating.
they see the middle class rising, shouldn't that be something Nancy
Yes.
Pelosi would celebrate?
And Hera, I have even worse news here. Wall Street jumps $2 trillion since Trump.
Well, that could be a huge bubble.
Yes, it could be, and actually,
Probably is.
It probably is, and that's kind of what the danger is right now. In fact, the next headline is hedge fund legend sees bubble. Tiger Management's Robertson says we are creating a bubble in stocks. And let's look at this because it's probably true. Hedge fund legend Julian Robertson Jr. of Tiger Management sees stock market valuations as very high and worries about a bubble forming. While Robertson says the market as a whole is expensive, he does not apply that to the leading tech stocks. Hedge fund, he made this comment Tuesday at the Delivering Alpha conference presented by CNBC and Institutional Investor. Central banks, including the Federal Reserve, should get the blame for, and then I've got an advertisement covering this, for the high market valuations through their programs to keep rates low and make sure investors did not have other alternatives to get returns. The market as a whole is quite high on a historical basis, he said. I think that's due to the fact that interest rates are so low, but there's no real competition for the money other than art and real estate. The Fed and others have kept rates low since the financial crisis in an effort to spur growth. The U.S. Central Bank is in the process of gradually raising rates, but the Fed benchmark is still low by historical standards. I think we need interest rates to appreciate, to go up, because I think we are creating a bubble, he said. While there are other reasons why people might want to bring down the market or bring down the economy, that is, would be because they really, truly hate Trump and want somehow to have an excuse to bring him down. And so that's another reason why some people, the Federal Reserve, might be raising rates. But the whole thing with the the Great Depression would not have been quite as great if it had not been for the Federal Reserve doing the opposite of what it should have done. If they had just let it alone, if they had not done anything, would have been and let the economy, let the market forces take care of that situation, would have been shorter and not as deep as it was. And also now, he's right saying that the Federal Reserve has kept interest rates too low for too long of a time. But again, if they had just let market forces handle the situations back in 08, we'd be better off now. But now, Federal Reserve, why is it there?
It's an illegal institution.
Yeah. Market forces, I think, are the free market forces are the best way to handle the economy, but people just don't. Especially elites and businessmen aren't satisfied with that. They want to be able to control it.
Well, there's an excessive amount of greed happening right now where people are looking, well, it's kind of a natural, you want the greatest return for your investment, and banks are not offering that through interest rates. So what happened in 2008, along with a lot of other things, is that the middle class got heavy into the stock market because that's where the money was. That's a 10 to 20% return at the time, sometimes even more. And the same is happening now, except now it's happening on a global scale. There's a lot of people in Asia that never were in the stock market are now in the stock market, and things are overvalued on a global scale. So I think the next recession/depression is going to be much bigger than we've ever experienced before, because it will be a global depression.
Fox had a story on Bitcoin that I can't find right now. I used it in the Korean portion of this broadcast, where the price of Bitcoin is now 3 times the price of gold. Whereas, just at the beginning of this year, it was about the same as gold, and now it's grown just 3 times in just since the beginning of this year. There's a bubble.
There's not a hard asset attached to Bitcoin.
It's not a hard asset.
It's totally paper.
And Jamie Dimon was saying how this is a fraud.
Yeah.
That he was saying
it's a pyramid scam.
It reminds him of the tulip situation in Netherlands in the 17th century, where at that time just one tulip became as valuable as a house at the time, and suddenly everything collapsed, and the economy of the country collapsed, and everything was very terrible.
Wow.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break now. We'll come back in a minute with more news.
It's interesting to study the
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, September 13th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, the 7th month and the 23rd day. And before the break, we were talking about the aftermath of Hurricanes Harvey and Irma, and also we were talking about how there's a bubble developing in the economy, and there may be a big crash there, and so that may be another kind of disaster that we would have to be prepared for. So we have Robert Packel here now with us, a guest, and he has some things to say about the 08 situation, the 2008 situation. Whatever you want to say, Robert.
Oh, well, no, I was just listening, and Tim was mentioning about 2008. During that time, I actually had, I was in the 5th year of ownership of contracting company that did electrical and HVAC for builders. The bubble during 2008 was based mainly on mortgages, which means housing, in particular private housing, and it was a speculative bubble. You know, all these terms.
Banks were giving loans to people who obviously could not repay them and could not make the monthly payments, and they went. But the banks were just packaging these and then selling them to others, and so that they. But anyway, it all went bust. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is that they couldn't pay it, but it was speculation upon speculation. Really, is where it was. But when it collapsed, I mean, I actually felt something. In a bubble situation, or what they call boom to bust cycle, during the boom, you can't keep up. And actually, when I had the company...
You know, I actually had a bank call me asking me to borrow money.
Yes. they were literally...
And I told them, I will on one condition, that I don't have to pay it back.
Right. Well, actually, that's the whole irony of this situation, is if you would let the natural cycle happen... There's pain. Anytime something's wrong and it gets corrected, you know, like when a child does something wrong and the parent has to correct him, there's real pain. But it's not just the pain of the relationship, there's also the consequences, like the child wrecked the car, okay? You know, and he didn't ask Dad's permission to borrow the keys in the first place, okay? There's the consequence of the relationship, and then there's the consequence of the action. But in 2008, to make a long story short, I'd purchased the company 5 years before an arranged bank loan based on business models. And I actually was very conservative. I based the loan on 50% of what the current business was doing. I was working for the owner, and he wanted to get on with life. He was older and he wanted to retire, so we arranged to buy the business, you know, and he wanted to pass it on to somebody he could trust. And so I based my business plan on 50% revenue, and then my payback, you know, and various things. Anyway, come May of 2008, before that, the phone would ring. I couldn't get enough good help, keep people going. And I actually increased the business's gross margin, you know, pre-tax margin, from about 13% to 28% in 5 years.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It was really good. I was actually running above, you know, my industry average is only around 15 to 18%. So to have a gross margin like that, plus it's competitive. You know, I mean, I didn't have an exclusive in an area. I wasn't a monopoly. You know, my competitor, the one that was really good with me, was H.G. Groner. Excellent company. He was a family business, built it up. I mean, I respected him. Man, we were counting on my bids. You know, I had to do bids for every contract. You know, every nickel counted. You know, working, I was putting in 14, 15-hour days a lot of times. But at any rate, 2008 comes, and I leveraged, you know, I borrowed money to buy the company. So here, every month, got these payments. May of 2008, it was just like somebody turned our phones off. And, of course, you're looking at sales and all this type of stuff. I could feel that, and I started feeling something was up. And then come August, I started got phone calls from the bank. Money people started asking. Suddenly, people were saying, well, we can't get loans anymore. You know, so here it comes. And then, you know, September, boom, you know, the financial crisis was announced. I really wasn't shocked, but was like everyone else. But to make a long story short, the bottom line was I went to the bank. I'd never missed a payment, never been late, never anything, perfect record. Went to the bank and said, listen, there's a severe downturn. Can we just restructure? I'm not trying to get out of my obligation. I'm being very honest with them. Let's do this. And basically, because the federal government intervened and they said no, once the government came in, it disallowed the local bank that I had the loan through from restructuring, because they said, for us to take care of the bank, you can't touch anything. So here I am sitting in the not the boardroom, but their conference room at the bank. And there's the VP of the bank. There's their head CPA accountant sitting there. There's my CPA. There's myself. We're sitting there going over everything. Of course, the CPA has all the records, all the cash flows of previous 4 years. They have all the things, terms of the bank loan laid out. And going over it, and then I'm showing them the last 6 months of cash flow. How I've taken between, depending on the individual month, anywhere between 70 to 90% drop in income coming in, you know, sales, you know, and a revenue drop of that significance. You know, in other words, you just walked off the cliff. I'd laid off 2/3 of my employees, you know, at that point. Going through this all, and we put it there and say, can we do a restructure? You know, what's there? At any rate, the bank CPA at one point prods the VP as we're talking. They go out and, you know, have obviously a private conversation for 5 minutes, come in. And then the VP comes in and says, well, after conferring, here's the bottom line. Also, you're not the only business like this. You know, everybody was like this, you know, and this local bank was on the hook too. And they said, our situation is we can't touch any of the loans, because if we do, then we're out from, quote, this federal protection umbrella. And he says, after conferring with that, our recommendation is that you go and file for bankruptcy. Now, this is the lender who lended me $600,000. Okay? I mean, the company normally was doing between 2.5 to about 3.2 million. The previous business year was my best business year. I did 3.2 million in raw sales. You know, so I mean, at one point had 29 employees. I was actually not quite a small company. I was actually quite a concern, and known as one of the, you know, of course I was on the merit of the previous owner as well in continuing that. But my CPA next to me, who was a Vietnam vet who had been through battles and that, he just literally just jerked in his seat when he heard that. And then he just went white. Then he gained his composure and said, okay. But as we were walking out later after the meeting concluded, he said, in my 35 years as a CPA, I've never heard the lender recommend go file bankruptcy. Because bankruptcy means
The lender loses.
supposedly.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The government came in and said, oh, we'll guarantee, basically this.
I see. So the government still, what do you mean, the government paid back?
Well, they
paid the
said,
bank?
we'll do something for you. At that
They're
time.
federally insured, all the banks, right?
Well, federally insured, but
But the loan wasn't federally insured.
no,
was
the
it?
loan wasn't federally insured. But what had happened is the government at that time had said, okay, we're going to step in and we're going to make sure things are solvent.
Right. So the
Well, the
government was going to give the
details-
bank money, yeah.
Yeah, the details weren't worked out, but what I forget what the formal organization is, but they said to all the banks, here's the deal. We will make some rules and things and we'll take care of you, but here's the deal. You cannot touch or modify. So what would be a normal relationship, in other words, say I borrowed $500 from Greg, which, say last week. And I promised and I signed a paper, Greg, I'll get this back to you. Now, I have a valid plan for it, everything else, Greg agreed to it, but something tremendous and unexpected happened. And I go to Greg and say, okay, Greg, I understand. I put my name on it. I owe you that 500. Unfortunately, and, I can give you, I've paid 200, but I can't get you the 300 I owe you this week. Can we work something out, even if it means I have to pay you more? That's a relationship between Greg and I. Normally, that's the relationship when you borrow money with a bank or an institution. Suddenly, you have these people come in and say, Greg, we'll take care of you, but you can't touch anything and you can't change any of your relationships and you can't have any dialogue with any of the people that owe you money. The bottom line is, I had to take a business that had, how many years? It was 79 he started it. 20 plus years. I think I was the number 2 contractor in HVAC in that area of the Poconos. And like number 4 electrically. I employed, like I said, at the peak, 29 people, on a payroll. I can't talk to the person that I borrowed the money to. It froze that relationship. Now, the other thing is, who are the people that really need help? I mean, obviously I needed help because the reason I bought the company is I'm trying to build a financial future for my family and everything else. But also, how about all these employees, all these people? Okay? What it was is when they came in and they said this is, we'll take care of the people who did the speculation and put us
Right,
in this
right,
problem
right,
in the
right.
first place.
Yeah, that's what really got me angry
And-
as well. I was paying my mortgage, but people who didn't pay their mortgage got bailed out.
Right. Well, actually, a lot of the people that didn't pay their mortgage didn't get bailed out. Who got bailed out was the idiots that loaned these people the money in the first place.
Well, a lot of people who were irresponsible got bailed out. I mean,
Right.
at least their irresponsibility was excused, as I recall.
Right.
But anyway, those are that's a economic catastrophe.
Right.
Uh,
The reality is if the government hadn't intervened, most likely the bank, because they wanted the remaining note paid off,
yeah.
probably would have worked something out with
Yeah.
me.
They also want the long-term relationship. Yeah.
Right. And here's the other thing is I probably would have been able to keep the company, though we would have downsized drastically.
But then later on, you could have upsized again.
Well, here's the thing. Things would have gone back to the normal set. The economics would have come. Instead, I'm literally forced because if I don't declare bankruptcy, the bank's not going to restructure. They're not even going to consider it. Then they're going to come in and seize in everything anyway. And I'm done. So it wiped out 5 years of my investment personally, and it wiped out, the second hardest thing I ever did in my life, Tim, was I told my 2 key people in the company at the time, a few days, went and talked to it, but then we had to get to it. They come in, my employees, the 9 that were left, Look somebody in the eye and give them a paycheck. These were the best people. They showed up every day. They worked. They came in. Give them their paycheck, then give them another 2 weeks and say, I'm sorry, but this is the end of the road. I can't do anything. I can give you a recommend. I called my competitors, everything else, you know, trying to find places for these people. But these are people with families and that. Look somebody in the eye and tell them, you don't have a job tomorrow.
Yep.
You don't have a place to go. And it's not because you did anything wrong.
So the rest of us need to learn from this kind of situation and to prepare for these kind of extraordinary situations where normal rules and normal relationships no longer apply. One of the things about Harvey and Irma I found is that when people evacuated, they weren't able to go back. The government police prevented them from going back to their homes when they wanted to. And of course, in the case of Harvey, we found that people helping people were sometimes stopped by the police and say, hey, we don't need your help anymore. But also in economic relationships, in the economic situation where we have money in the bank, which we think that we can spend at any time, but then one day, it goes away.
And the bank actually can repossess things, and I think this is the message the king has been giving.
Yes.
Also cooked to him recently, be debt-free. You know, that's
Yes.
make that a priority in your financial plan. Become
Yes.
as debt-free to credit cards and to mortgages if you can,
Yes.
and own things outright. You'll be much better to face whatever financial storm,
Yes.
financial hurricane that might be coming.
Financial hurricane, yes, and we may very well have one of those, and it may we'll find that normal things that we take for granted are no longer hold true, and that like Robert was saying, that the relationship with the bank, you think it's going well, but then it's like one day someone turns out the lights, and we don't know when that could happen. Financial experts have been warning about a bubble in the financial system for quite a long time, and one of these days it's going to happen, and we don't know when it's going to happen, but we can be pretty sure that it is going to happen. Someone like Jim Rogers, I think, was saying, he's also a respected financial analyst, and he was saying that later this year or next year, there will be a huge financial downturn, worse than anything that anyone has ever experienced in our lifetimes. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with more after this short break.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, back for the King's Report for September 13th. I'm here with Greg Knoll and Robert Pickel, going through some of the news, and I found something very inconvenient. A new glacier, has formed in a very inconvenient place.
Los Angeles? No.
Yes, California.
Oh, really?
Yes.
In the Sierra Nevadas, obviously.
Maybe they can call it the inconvenient glacier. New glacier forming in California? Question mark. It's still forming. We still don't know yet. But what? So it looks like there's some snow that is going to survive through the year. And so that's maybe the start of a new glacier there. Just found this update on Squaw Valley Glacier as of September 11th.
Wow.
Says a reader P. Salmon. It's small, but looks like it's hanging around for next season. Temps now freezing at night up there and in the 70s during the day at Truckee, California. People should understand how hot it can get in the high Sierra during the summer, 80s and burning sun. So for snow to survive is remarkable. Plus, the West Coast was above normal this summer. So an inconvenient glacier, right where the celebrities least would like for it to happen.
Squaw Valley actually is a very famous ski area,
Yes,
winter area.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I have not been there. Some of the other headlines on Drudge this morning: border battle, the wall begins? ? Feds warn construction could spark large-scale protests. Maryland City gives non-citizens right to vote. Some countries give a non-citizens right to vote, especially on the local level, not on the national level. But I know a number of countries do that. Teflon Don confounds Dems. Teflon Don, of course, was the nickname that was given to one of the mafia leaders, now left wing, Don Gotti. That's right.
Don Gotti and
Yeah.
the Queen.
So that's,
Yeah, Queens.
that's Trump's new name?
That's Politico is trying to give it to to Trump. Apparently, he's that's good if he's Teflon. That's good. Democrats have attacked the president every which way, but polling and focus groups show none of it's working.
In other words, some people are actually awake.
Yes, Democrats tried attacking Donald Trump as unfit for the presidency. They've made the case that he's ineffective, pointing to his failures to gain a single major piece of legislation into law after 8 months in the job. They've argued that Trump is using the presidency to enrich himself and that his campaign was in cahoots with Russia. None of it is working. Data from a range of focus group and internal polls in swing states paint a difficult picture for the Democratic Party heading into the 2018 midterms and 2020 presidential election. It suggests that Democrats are naive if they believe Trump's historically low approval numbers mean a landslide is coming. The party is defending 10 Senate seats in states that Trump won and needs to flip 24 House seats to take control of that chamber. The research conducted by private firms and for Democratic campaign arms is rarely made public, but was described to Politico in interviews with a dozen top operatives who've been analyzing the results coming in. Quote, "If that's the attitude that's driving the Democratic Party, we're going to drive right into the ocean," unquote, said Anson Kay, a strategist at media firm GMMB, who worked on the Obama and Clinton campaign and is in conversations with potential clients for next year. Worse news, they worry. Many of the ideas party leaders have latched onto in an attempt to appeal to their lost voters, free college tuition, raising the minimum wage to $15, even Medicaid for all, test poorly among voters outside the base. The people in these polls find focus groups tend to see those proposals as empty promises at best. Pollsters are shocked by how many voters describe themselves as exhausted by the constant chaos surrounding Trump, and they find that there's strong support for a Congress that provides a check on him instead of voting for his agenda most of the time. But he's still viewed as an outsider shaking up the system, which people in various surveys say they like, and which Democrats don't stack up well against. Quote, "People do think he's bringing about change, so it's hard to say he hasn't kept his promises," says Democratic pollster Celinda Lake. In focus groups, most participants say they're still impressed with Trump's business background and tend to give him credit for the improving economy. The window is closing, but they're still inclined to give him a chance to succeed. More than that, no single Democratic attack on the president is sticking, not on his temperament, his lack of accomplishments, or the deals he's touted that have turned out to be less than advertised, like the president's claim that he would keep Carrier from shutting down its Indianapolis plant and moving production to Mexico. Voters are also generally unimpressed by claims that Trump exaggerates or lies, and they don't see the ongoing Russia investigation adding up to much. Quote, there are a number of things that are raising questions in voters' minds against him, unquote, said Matt Cantor, who's been conducting focus groups for Global Strategy Group and swing states. They're all raising questions, but we still have to weave it into one succinct narrative about his presidency. Stop, Democratic operatives urge voters, assuming that what they think is morally right is the best politics. A case in point is Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville. The president's equivocation on neo-Nazis was not as much of a political problem as his opponents want to believe. Democratic operatives say, and shifting the debate to whether or not to remove Confederate monuments largely worked for him. For him, yeah. He's the president. The assessment that voters will make is he a good one or not? While Democrats like me have come to conclusions on that question, most of the voters who will decide future elections have not, Cantor said. Many of the proposals Democrats are pushing fall flat in focus groups and polling. The call for free college tuition fosters both resentment at ivory tower elitism and regret from people who have degrees but are now buried under debt. Yeah, my kids should suffer the same way I did.
Well,
Go ahead, Robert.
no, this is the thing: is you break down the proper relationship. If you want something, you work for it, you earn it. You know, this is the thing. Student loans used to be all in the private sector. I mean, there was a little government guidelines or say, but they weren't controlled. Obama federalized them all. Oh, now the politicians get to use them like candy to gain votes. But how about the people that, like you said, you know, you're fiddling with the proper relationship of things. Politics should not be in the economy like this.
Okay, let me finish the story here. Many voters see free as a lie. Either
Yeah.
they'll end up paying for tuition some other way, or worse, they'll be paying the tuition of someone else who will be getting a degree for free.
Yeah,
That is for sure true.
somebody pays.
Greenberg, Quinlan, Rosner Research, and Gerstein, Bory, and Agnes Strategies conducted online polling of 1,000 Democrats and 1,000 swing voters across 52 swing districts for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Their advice to candidates afterward: drop the talk of free college. Instead, the firms urged Democrats to emphasize making college more affordable and reducing debt, as well as job skills training, according to an internal DCCC memo. When Democrats go and talk to working class voters, we think talking to them about how we can help their children go to college, they have a better life, is great, said Ali Lapp, Executive Director of House Majority PAC, which supports Democratic House candidates. They're not interested. If it's a problem when you have a growing bloc in the electorate thinking that college is not good, and they actually disdain folks that go to college. Yeah.
A lot of educated idiots.
Yeah. Medicare for all tests better, but it too generates suspicion. The challenge is that most voters in focus groups believe it's a pipe dream. They ask who will pay for it and suspect it will lead to a government takeover of health care. And therefore, see, this is why there's hope for America. People actually ask these questions. Who's going to pay for it?
Well, also,
know?
you know, parents send their kids to colleges. This is everyday working parents, and their children come out very, very different
Yes.
people
Yes.
than when they went in 4
Yes.
years earlier.
Yes.
And this is alarming to a lot of parents.
It is alarming, yes. And they therefore wonder whether the politicians talking to them about it are being less than forthright. Senator Bernie Sanders is scheduled to release a single-payer bill on Wednesday, with Senators Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, and Tammy Baldwin among those joining him. Healthcare is one bright spot for Democrats. Obamacare is less unpopular than it used to be, and voters generally want the law to be repaired. Data also show that voters trust Democrats more than Republicans on the healthcare issue. Voters rated Trump and Democrats about equally on health care at the start of his term, but Democrats now have a large double-digit lead, according to DCCC polling. But attacking Republicans on the issue is tricky. The specifics of GOP alternatives are unpopular, but most voters don't realize Republicans had a plan, so it's hard to persuade them to care about the details of something that never came to be. raising the minimum wage to $15 is as unpopular as it was when the Obama White House tried to make it a Democrats' rallying cry in the 2014 midterms. Participants in the Battleground State Focus groups said they see that rate as relatively high and the issue in general as being mostly about redistributing money to the poor. This whole thing of minimum wage, of course, is just nonsense. You could get rid of unemployment simply by getting rid of the minimum wage and also by changing the laws about unions. As anybody who wants to work should be able to work and can work. You know what I did, what was it, a couple days ago? For the first time in my life, I went to a McDonald's. Yes, I'm sorry. I went to a McDonald's.
You should repent.
But this is the important part of the story. And I ordered using their
Robotic.
touch screen thing. Mm-hmm. And actually I felt more guilty about that than eating my double cheeseburger.
You took away somebody's job.
I took away somebody's job, yes.
And that's what $15 an hour will do.
Yes. And I hesitated, and I said to my wife, we shouldn't be doing this. But let's do it instead anyway, because there's a line over here, all right, and over here there's no line.
Right.
Where are you going to go?
Yeah. What are employers going to do? They got to pay people $15 an hour plus give them generous health care benefits. They're going to hire a robot in a heartbeat.
Yes.
If it becomes more affordable, which it is. The technology is advancing where it makes it financially a lot more sense to hire a robot.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I ordered my thing. And then they had me take a number and go sit down, and then you sit, and then someone brings it to you. So there's still a job. I guess in the future they'll have a robot bring it to you. But
yeah, they don't have to think too much. The servers.
But it was I felt more guilty about the ordering process than I did about the ingredients in the double cheeseburger.
It's a lose.
When you were talking about employment and college, and it reminded me because I hired a lot of people. The most difficult thing I had when I had the business was having good help, good employees. And if I found a good employee, I'd pay them well. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. Let the market decide. But it reminds me of a job interview. A guy came in, had gone to college, interview him. For various reasons, I decided I wasn't going to hire him during the interview, but just a standard practice I have at the end is I'd ask who the person, they're taking their time to come in, they're trying to get a job, be respectful. So I'd ask them at the end, is there anything you'd like to ask of me, being the owner of the company? And this person who had graduated college and everything else said, yeah, I'd like to know, when will I get my first raise? I'll never forget that. I mean, I won't get into the whole thing.
Good interview question.
I haven't even decided to hire you. Actually, you don't understand. I've already decided I'm not going to hire you. And here, but, I just have to say part of it is because he felt because he had a degree, or at least that was the impression I was getting, that he was entitled to this. He was thinking, move up, be a manager. Listen, I don't care if you went to Ivy League or not. I'm hiring you to do a job. Why don't you go out first and prove you can do the job, and then we'll come back and talk about it. What you did before that really doesn't matter to me much.
Okay, I have to cut you off there because we've got seconds left right now.
I'm sorry.
And let's look at some of the headlines related to the storms. Texas calls in Air Force to fight mosquitoes, I guess after the hurricanes. Cities swimming in raw sewage, yucky.
Are these the 10 plagues?
Apparently, yes. Well, let's not laugh about it, all right? People are suffering. Florida swelters, looters armed with sledgehammers, calls to punish global warming skeptics rise. Sports Illustrated slammed for bikini shoots on ravaged beaches. Who else was talking about doing a post-apocalyptic shooting?
Those are the able side and the king side.
All right. But one thing I did, I don't see it today, but we were seeing how in the Virgin Islands or in some of the Caribbean islands, I guess in St. Martin, tourists are literally closing themselves off in their hotel rooms because of the armed looters are going around stealing everything they can. The people broke into the customs house, I guess, and stole some weapons from there, and about 600 of them were going around the island, and so that island is owned, I guess, or is a colony or something of Netherlands and France, and somehow the UK also has something to do with it. And so they're sending in police and central government control and everything like
Could have
that.
all been solved
Yeah.
if it was armed citizens.
Yeah. So I'm sure those tourists would like to have some means of defending themselves.
Yeah.
So this kind of breakdown of relationships and breakdown of society and the social fabric that can occur. The Japanese talk about how after their disasters they all line up and everything like that. But if you go back to 1923, there was a massacre in Japan after an earthquake. There was a massacre. We won't go into it today, but a lot of ethnic Koreans actually were massacred then because the rumor went around that the Koreans were poisoning the well water or something like that.
Wow.
So even in a place like Japan that touts itself as being well-mannered even in disasters, these kinds of things can happen, and we have to expect that will happen in the future. So God has given everyone a right to be armed. Sometimes governments limit that right, but it is a God-given right. And that's one of the things that we need to do to be prepared, to make sure that we have those tools that we may need in an emergency.
Jew.
All right, time for us to go off the air and enjoy the rest of our day. Hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. And so let's use these lessons to be prepared. All sorts of the aftermath of these disasters, both natural and economic and otherwise. Let's use these as lessons to make sure that we are able to deal with our future disasters better than we have or other people have in the past. All right, so God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.